the emotion is the problem these days, I think. The anger and the emotion. And you just got to remember, you're broadcasting. Whether you think you're talking to a small group of friends, you're broadcasting to the whole world.
HMMC. You're listening to the WYE Radio Network.
Today, the guys sit down with Dave Statter from Statter 911 to talk about SMACSS. Podcast that responds to all emergencies on and off the job.
And now here are your hosts, Motor Cop and the Happy Medic.
You know, MC, back in the early days of the Happy Medic, there was one guy that you wanted to be mentioned on his website, and that was Dave Statter. Statter911.com has been active in the online community since 2007. Dave spent 38 years in broadcast news media, going out there and getting stories. Now he spends the bulk of his time making sure that the fire and EMS community knows exactly what they need to be talking about, usually focused on the Washington, D.C. area. But he is an active voice in the online fire and EMS community, and I am very excited to get him on the show.
Wait a minute. Are you saying on episode 4 of What's Your Emergency, we're actually bringing yet another subject matter expert on?
Another industry expert, and somebody that I've known for a long time.
I'm out of the show. I'm out. Write me out.
Really?
No, well, no, probably not. We still have beer left, right?
Yeah.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah. So let's sit him down. Let's call him up. Let's get him on the show.
Let's do it.
Dave, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Great. Thanks for coming on the show. You know, you and I first met, God, it's got to be 9 or so years ago, right after Chronicles of EMS, when the internet, remember, everybody told us it wasn't going to last and social media was just a fad. How'd that work out?
It's amazing. We're still here. We are still here.
How'd that work out? He said on his internet radio show.
Yeah,
that's right.
There you go. So, Dave, with your experience in traditional news media, your early years in the fire and EMS field up there in the D.C. area, and then now in the social and sharing media, this term of, what'd you call it, reputation
management.
Reputation management is really something we need to do. You know, it was about 5 or 6 years ago, I was at a conference and they said, cancel all your social media, have no presence whatsoever, which is bad. No news is not good news when you're trying to find out about people. But Dave, this idea of social media assisted career suicide syndrome, was that a term that you coined, or did you just pick that up with these examples?
I actually coined it. It happened after an incident in Prince George's County, Maryland, where a police officer allowed his police cruiser to be used in a rap video without any authorization, and it ended up on YouTube and elsewhere.
Uh-oh.
And
I gotta make a quick phone call. I'll be back.
But, I mean, let's be honest though. If it was in a country video or with the cute pop star of the day, Dave, do you think it would have been any different, or was this the officer just thinking he could beg forgiveness later instead of asking permission?
That's a really good question. But I mean, this is a predominantly African American community, so might be more tolerable in that regard because that might be more appropriate. But I think the problem was no authorization, and the problem was the profanity used in the video, and it didn't make police officers look that great from what I recall of it. But the police department came out very proactively, and that was, I think, the day that I came up with social media assisted career suicide syndrome, and you're one of the few people to get it right.
I only because I wrote it down, you know, just knowing the definition of syndrome and how it passes, the way that it can kind of dive in. But can you give us another example that was from the PD side? What about on the fire and EMS side? You know, the paramedics getting into stuff where they're sharing patient information that they shouldn't. I think that's kind of different. But can you give us an example of somebody in the fire EMS circles that just really did not defend their reputation very well?
I think a lot of what's happening, particularly today, is because of the political climate. People think that they have the right to free speech, which they do have. They're absolutely right about that. And then they go on and just express not just a political opinion, but a rather strong political opinion that might use profanity, might use racial epithets. And we've had a number of those recently, including a volunteer fire chief in New York State who used a racial epithet in responding to a political, I think, a political thread on Facebook, and basically was taken out of his position because of it. And some people say, well, what about free speech? And you and I have discussed this many times, which is that you have the right to free speech. That doesn't mean it's not without consequences. He was allowed to make that speech.
I assume he was talking ill of Canadians because, Canada, the Canucks, man. I'll tell you what. God bless our Canadian listeners.
Canada's right back here on our world map, guys.
That's true.
Here on What's Your Emergency Radio.
There you go.
Now,
another sight gag on a radio
show.
Well
on
done.
a radio show. Now, Dave, over the last 10 years that social media has been slowly growing in popularity, have you seen an increase in the number or the severity of SMACSS looking back, or has it always just been a bunch of idiots? There's just more people noticing the idiots.
I like to say in the talks that I give around the country to firefighters and others in public safety is that firefighters, particularly because I know them better, are getting in trouble the same way now as they were when I was in the fire service 40-some years ago. The only difference is they take that camera and they shoot pictures of it, or they put it out very publicly to people. So I think we're still getting in trouble. I mean, one of the ones that really got a lot of people in trouble, you remember, is that prank in Macon-Bibb County, Georgia, where they faked a guy coming into the fire station with a gun.
Yep, I remember that.
And not only did they shoot video of it, they put the credits at the end. So,
oh my God!
So you knew who was involved in it. And I always say about that one when I show that video is that, what would have happened if a police officer walked in for a cup of coffee, as we know they always do, possibly a donut.
And a bathroom break, clean.
A bathroom break in the firehouse.
Sure, that's legit.
Nobody the guy with the fake gun.
Nobody cleans a bathroom like a firefighter. I'll tell you that right now.
That's right, and not for that salary either.
Absolutely.
So, Dave, folks in the three disciplines, fire, police, EMS, and I would even branch out to our wider What's Your Emergency audience in disaster planning and military. There's always this kind of prank, inside joke stuff going on. We've always been idiots to a certain extent.
True story.
But now we have this ability to just pull a camera and a video camera out of our phone, and we can have our shenaniganry, trademark shenaniganry, out to the world before we can even realize what we've done.
Yeah, before we decide, is this a good idea? Oh, publish.
Yeah, and it's too late. So it's,
you're right.
Yeah,
That's exactly what happened.
What I'm getting at, Dave, is are we still the problem, or is our use of the technology the problem?
The technology, of course, is a double-edged sword. There's great stuff with social media. I tell that in my classes all the time. There's a lot that the fire service, EMS, and police should be doing, and they are doing it now, much more so than they were when I started preaching this 8 or 9 years ago when I left television. And but that double-edged sword will come and bite you, and that's because we don't think. People don't think, what am I doing here? They don't think about the impact. They don't think beyond today or this moment and say, let's say we're on a fire ground. We're thinking, where's that fire going? You're starting a fire there, but you're not thinking where it's going. And that's what it often does, is it goes and takes your job.
We're talking about these desires to have that immediate access to our audiences, to be an influencer. And again, with the radio, the air
he's
quotes
doing air
on the
quotes
radio,
on a radio show
again. Do you recall probably a few years back, the "Where's the Girl" video?
Where's the little girl?
Where's the little girl?
It's the police officers chasing the guy, and they stop him. They got him at gunpoint.
They all pull him out, and they're yelling at him, "Where's the little girl? Where's the little girl?" And the guns are out, and he starts to cry, and they're like, "There's the little girl."
Oh.
Yeah. A bunch of guys, they were actually reserve officers, and the mistake they made was having their patches visible.
Well, honest
to God,
the mistake they did was thinking that was going to be funny.
No, that's one of my favorite videos ever.
I've
never met a cop. I've never met a cop that thought that wasn't funny. So we want to have this connection with our community. I have my opinion about things like the lip sync challenge. I'm curious, what do you think of the mannequin challenge, the lip sync challenge, the insert challenge here? What is your opinion?
It's not my favorite thing personally. It's just you don't see much of it on my website. I don't think any of it, because it just doesn't interest me that much. But I think there's some times to show the human side. I think they can be used, social media, to show your human side. I think that's one way to do it. One I remember, gosh, I wish I could remember who the the name of the department. It'll come to me in a second. I think it was in Indiana, where the fire department had its drone, and they're right next door to the police department. They sent a donut over in the new drone that they had hanging from a string. And then but this was great. Then the police department fought back by putting one of these portable road signs out with the electronic message during the middle of the day: "Shh, firefighters sleeping inside." Yep. And then at night they put it up saying, "Honk," to let the firefighters know you appreciate them.
Oh, that's genius. I love that.
But the great thing about it was controlled. The mayor was in on it. Everybody was in on it.
Yep.
It became very good natured. But we all know there are people who would take that too far.
Certainly. Of course.
So you have to think.
Gary.
It's really almost a marketing campaign that they were doing there. They had to think how it was going. I was in touch with them. I really loved what they were doing. And they handled it extremely well. And I think they got some goodwill with the public. You do want to show your human side. I tell that to fire and police chiefs all the time. That even when you've got bad news, and this is not a human side, that's a light side, but even when you've got a bad news to tell, show that you're human. Because people appreciate that. If you're just talking the jingo or the talk that's in your business and not talking in human terms and not reaching out in human terms, it's not going to work.
That's one of the things that kind of rubs me the wrong way with these lip sync challenges. And stop rubbing.
Am I rubbing you the wrong way right now?
No, you're rubbing me the right way.
But I have to watch this. Remember,
I know, and I'm so sorry. They come up on my feed, and I just scroll right past them. They drive me absolutely insane. But the prank thing you're talking about, that's kind of been the one of the staples of our relationship is this police fire, good natured. My dad's retired fire.
Good natured. Good natured. That's the trick.
And that is
well intentioned.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the public at large gets that red versus blue kind of thing, and it's kind of fun. But when you're taking time out of your day and your resources to make silly internet videos, I mean, if all these people, and I can't imagine this is true, and I'm making an assumption. If all these people are off duty, hey, great, knock yourself out. I would put that up front on my video. This video was recorded while all these they came on their own time, whatever. As a taxpayer, if I see my local PD, which I did, do this kind of thing, I'm gonna be like, why aren't you driving up and down my damn street?
Well, that's a good point, and I used to show that in one of my classes. There was a town in California that one day they put up, I think, a half a dozen videos in the same day of pranks being done. The standard pranks, somebody hiding in a locker, that sort of thing. It wasn't anything too bad. There was a little bad language on there. But I'm thinking, this relatively small town, that the fire chief goes in front of the mayor and the town council looking for funds, and he wants to increase staffing. He says, looks like you got plenty of staffing when you can spend half the day working on these videos.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think that's something that a lot of administrators are thinking about, because you'll see chiefs of police in these videos, and then they got to go defend their budget in front of a town council, city council, whatever. And that's going to be an interesting conversation.
But at the same time, you've got some of the planning that goes into this, getting the mayor, getting the sheriff, whoever it is, on board to try to get a video to go viral. I think back to the elevator dancing video of all the detectives in there boogieing. It looks like security video, but it was very well planned. Dave, I want to go back and touch on something you said of using it as a tool to get your department's message out and not kind of hiding behind stuff. I'm sure you saw the story recently up in our neck of the woods. Sac Metro fire had engine 111 stolen from the scene of a grass fire. It would have been very easy for Sac Metro to just close up, to cut off communications and just say, where it's an active investigation or whatever. They went the extra mile. They showed the engine up on the tow truck. They said, we're bringing her home. She's going to be well taken care of. They showed it up on the lift back at the shops. And hey, our well-trained mechanics are working on her already. They took this bad story and used the same media that made it look, this police chase, and they used it to show that they're a caring agency that does more than fight fires. So it can be done right.
The smart people are doing that. And I've noticed in, as I said, about 8 or 9 years that I've been really pushing this, that we've, I think, hit a critical mass finally. And most smart PIOs are using social media. They're telling their story every day. They're there when the critical incident happens, whether it's good or bad, and they're telling their own story. And in many cases, even if it's a bad story, I just saw a couple police departments do this, where they had something not too good to tell, and they were out there on social media live streaming a press conference or getting their story out and telling the story themselves rather than waiting for the reporters to find the bad news. That's what social media should be used for. That's the good side of the double-edged coin.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, because often through all the social media things that we've experienced, that we've been at conferences, etc., the kind of the banner that people want to put up is, hey, if you don't take control of your reputation, somebody on social media is.
Yep.
So what kinds of strategies can you offer administrators or individual officers or fire guys or medics? How can we avoid the
SMACSS?
The SMACSS. And to be honest, my follow-up question is, can I SMACSS him right now?
No, it would be fine with me.
Oh my God! God bless you.
Physical violence on What's Your Emergency Radio?
Because I'll have it recorded here, and then I can sit there. Well,
That's perfect.
So, what can I do as an officer to not be an idiot on the internet?
That's a good question, and the first thing I say is use your head. The emotion is the problem these days. I think the anger and the emotion, and you just got to remember, you're broadcasting. Whether you think you're talking to a small group of friends, you're broadcasting to the whole world. Yep. Because even if you're sharing just to your personal friends on Facebook, somebody who doesn't like that message is going to share it with the entire world. And that's happened in a number of cases. I think you've got to understand, and being judgmental, that's the other word I would use. Look, we know that across the kitchen table in the firehouse or in the patrol car, we're talking all kinds of things. But when you put it on social media, you've gone to a new level and you've just broadcast what you believe. I remember one a number of years ago where I think it was in Missouri, a firefighter came back from a child struck, and he went on Facebook and blasted the mother of that child. And I'm thinking, since when did we become so judgmental and want to share it with everybody? And that's often what happens. And it may not be something that we're being judgmental about that has to do with our work. It may be tangential to our work, or it may not have anything to do at all to the work. And we share that information, and it gets people in trouble when they do that. So stop being judgmental, stop being so angry, and if you are judgmental and angry, don't share it on the internet. That's where it comes down to the street level of firefighters and police officers and EMS. That's where it comes down. Stop doing that. It'll save you so much angst in your life. Yes, we know you have the right. You have a First Amendment right to do that, but it isn't smart.
And the other thing we talk about, Dave, is we're bringing guests on the new What's Your Emergency Radio to talk about ways that you can adjust to that situation before you fire up the computer. So it's journaling, it's meditation, it's talking with experts, it's talking with peers. Definitely the number one way, MC, that I see people going wrong is they, like Dave said, they take that raw emotion and they just throw it on the internet because they feel that release. And that's kind of what we did with our blogs over the years.
Absolutely.
But Dave, something that's important, we keep talking about the First Amendment. You can say what you want, but there's a lot of rules in your department that you need to be familiar with. And one of those is off-duty decorum. Do you have any recommendations for firefighters, police, EMS in department affiliation? They put in their bio that they work for XYZ fire department. Is that a good thing, a bad thing, or does it even make a difference anymore?
I think if you're smart, you don't do it at all these days, because it can come back to haunt you. And I see more and more involved in public safety using aliases on social media, so it isn't a direct impact. I have
aliases.
friends now.
So you mean people don't use their real names? They come up with something catchy like Motor Medic or the Happy Cop.
I see what you did there. That's genius.
See, I made up two new names.
I got it.
Trademark.
But basically, I have friends that it might be their first name, and suddenly I see a different last name. But if you have pictures on there involving your department, if you have any kind of affiliation, I think and you start saying things that are not very pleasing to the public, you're going to probably have problems. So it doesn't mean necessarily you're going to be fired, but why create? I always say to people, do you want to be the test case? Do you want to go through that? You may win, you may lose. There's a lot of this is still going through courts. I'm not a lawyer. I talk to a lot of lawyers, like our friend Kurt Verone, and they tell me a lot of this is just still being decided. You win some, you lose some. I know if I was doing this, I wouldn't want to be in the position of having somebody decide my fate, and I'm not so sure where it's going to go.
You were talking a, couple of questions ago about, you said stop being judgmental. that's a difficult thing for cops in particular, because that's our we're not judges per se.
Yeah, you went close there.
But we have to make judgment calls. We have to make judgment calls all the time. Does this guy need to go to jail because he did X, Y, and Z? Does this wife need to go to jail because of X, Y, and Z? We have to make these judgment calls, and oftentimes, probably 95% of the time, we are interacting with the public at their worst moment of their lives. So how can we separate our feelings? Because we're, believe it or not, still human. We still have opinions about what, Johnny or Susie did. How can we exorcise those demons away from social media?
I wish I had an answer to that. That's a good question. It took a long time to ask that question, too. And I don't have a good answer. I don't have a very good answer for it, other than the way I relate it is you got to detach yourself from it. We taught, I learned in the fire service when I first got there, it's not my emergency. I need to detach myself from this to make rational decisions. As a police officer, most of them are walking around with a camera on them. It records the audio, and if you're not paying attention, you might be recording that audio. And there's nothing you can do about it. It's done at that point.
Absolutely.
So, I just think you got to go through the mindset that you're always being recorded, or somebody's always recording you, or going to catch you doing that.
Absolutely.
When I was in the fire service, it was a very brief time. It was 6 years, 40 years ago in the 70s. I can think of 2 times that there was film, not even video, of an active fire that I was on. One was a tanker fire on the Beltway that a news photographer got overnight. The other was an apartment explosion that supposedly some neighbor had a 16-millimeter camera and started filming it. I've never seen that one. I did see the tanker fire. But that's only 2 times. Today, anything you guys go on, there's somebody there taking pictures. EMS call, whatever it is, there's somebody with a camera there taking pictures. And I think you got to keep that in mind. Look what happened. Where was hold on a second, it'll come to me. The police officer just got his job back when he said something pretty bad at the scene. What was it? Oh, it was a good one, actually, the way the police chief handled the whole thing. But there it was recorded on the camera what he said. He got fired for it. It was in Denver. It was in Denver. A guy got fired. The commission that reviews that allowed him to get his job back, but the chief says, I'm not putting him back to work with the public after what he said there. But that was something that was caught. It was heard by supervisors there, but also it was recorded.
And Dave, you bring up a good point about the PD wearing the cameras and everything. It's not even, you don't even need the social media to ruin your career based on your gut reaction and just kind of spitting out your frustrations to the world, as you might be upset and forget that camera's running. So it seems like one of the big things is we need to get... Well, let me ask you this question now that it pops into my head late in our time with you. Do you see this happening more to the younger guys just coming in, the older guys, or is everybody just an equal idiot?
Well, I think the younger guys were raised with the idea that everything they do goes on social media, which doesn't always work well with public safety.
Correct.
I think that they've learned since, the phone has been the extension of their hand since they were little kids, and everything they do goes on there. And I think it's important for the leaders in the fire service and police and EMS to tell the new ones coming in, this doesn't necessarily work well there. That may be separate from your social media policy, but set a tone that it doesn't work. I mean, I used to kid around that today, if somebody goes to the bathroom, they tell you that they're going to the bathroom, and then afterwards provide an after-action report. And
it's not a bad idea. I might start doing that.
Yeah, I understand. But that there's, in a sense, it's true. We just share way too much, and I kind of think that the older people, I think, have learned from the younger people. Too many of them are doing it. But yes, I think it's more of a problem with the younger people. Yes.
One of the jokes we had when we first got our taser-linked body cameras. So if anybody activates their taser, everybody in the room, all of their body cameras activate. It's a great set. And I've said this before on our last show, the crossover show. I am a huge advocate of body cameras. I love them.
As am I. I wish we could have them in the ambulance.
Yeah, if you don't know that you're recording, you're half an idiot, because you either press the button to make it happen, or it makes a noise and vibrates every minute or so. So if you kind of forget I'm going to call BS on that.
Are you trying to say
ridiculous.
that they weren't paying attention in the hour-and-a-half training?
Yep.
They
exactly.
signed the sheet.
So here's the joke at the PD is when we go into the lavatory, you got to turn the mic or turn the camera off because somebody will go by and spark test their taser, and now you're recording yourself using the bathroom, and that's all bad. Nobody wants to see that video.
But here's the thing, though. MC, your guys obviously understand how the technology works, and
Absolutely.
I think that's definitely part of the battle is understanding that yes, you had a bad day. Yes, you need to go and kind of just do this emotional dump, and that's what our blogs were back in the early days. 2007, 2008, 2009. It was just shouting into an empty room. Like Dave said, it's an echo chamber. Nowadays, you can't really do that anymore. Back then it was, you have a blog? What's a blog? Now it's cross-checked here and it's cross-checked there and everything. So having these other outlets that we're talking about on What's Your Emergency Radio is definitely important. But Dave, aside from shut up,
don't do that.
Can you give us 1 or 2 or 3 tips on how to avoid SMACSS?
Let's think about that. Besides shut up, I think that if you're angry about something, it's the same old thing. Just wait. Write it down. Don't send it anywhere. Look at it the next day. Because in likelihood...
But by then it won't be viral, Dave.
Yeah, that
I need viewership.
That is true. Talk to someone else. Get some advice from someone you trust. Should I send this or not? It always can help you that way. It's important to, even if you do make a mistake like this, it's important to let somebody know and not try to hide and cover it up, as we know, because that can be a problem. What other tips do I have for people doing this? Think about if you're being judgmental about somebody and you want to share it with anybody else. Think about, is this worth my job? Just think about that for a second. Mm-hmm. Because even though you may have the right, the fact is my livelihood worth this? What I'm saying is it so important what I'm writing down here that my livelihood, I want to put it at stake.
Yeah, one of the examples I used to use, Dave, long ago, and maybe you remember it, was the crowded restaurant test. If I stood up and said this at a crowded restaurant in my district, would it be a problem? It seems to me like some people are forgetting that, or maybe it doesn't apply. What are your thoughts?
No, I think people are very much forgetting it. And we always hear the thing, well, it's so much worse today. They get us on things that they wouldn't have done. Years ago was great. Well, years ago we didn't have social media. Mm-hmm. But I can assure you, even when I was growing up in the late 50s and early 60s, I know I seem old saying that, but it was, if my father, for example, had said something bad in the news media about the people he worked for, he'd be fired. If I went not that they would publish it, but if they would publish some racially charged letter to the editor, and I had a position in a public firm of some sort, they'd probably fire me. The difference is now is that printing press or that TV transmitter or radio transmitter is now in your hands in the form of social media, and you're sending it out to everybody. You don't need the middleman, and without the middleman, we sometimes really don't think. It hasn't. The only thing that's changed really is that we have social media, which makes a big difference.
Well, Dave, I can't thank you enough for taking time out of your day. We want to respect your time.
Right, thank me enough.
No, okay. No.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Dave. Gracias. Anything else?
I took French and German.
Here, Dave, come on over the other room and have a beer with us.
Yeah, here you go. You can join us and enjoy it.
Wish I had one here.
There you go. It's interesting, Dave, because I very recently almost fell victim to SMACSS.
I want to hear this.
Oh, you want to hear this? Well, you can... Well, let me just give a quick recap to our audience. I had an internet radio show, and my employer said, we listen to your show and we don't like it. Ta-da!
Welcome to What's Your Emergency Radio?
New radio show. But it's important when you do get approached by your agency and they have a problem with it, guys, you have to be honest. You have to listen to what their requests are. Because like Dave said, is your job worth your stupid internet radio show where you drink beer, swear, and have fun? No. So we'll dump all that, and then we'll start bringing on guests like Dave Statter from Statter911.com, who can drink, swear, and say bad things. And we just go, whoa, what a crazy guest.
Yeah, exactly.
So what our listeners don't know, MC, here at WYE Radio is Dave has a potty mouth, and we had to edit out a good 40 minutes of this conversation.
Yeah, I'm not looking forward to post-production. I'll tell you that right now.
No, because we do not want Dave to fall for his own syndrome. And Dave, this is not just in the 3 disciplines. As we're recording this, you just this morning had an interaction where you brought to light someone in the media who was using social media wrong. So nobody is immune.
Yeah, this was an interesting one. It's a young reporter in Richmond, Virginia, and this tweet has been up for 2 days. I can't believe it lasted 30 minutes up there, and his boss didn't say, hey, you might want to take that down. There's a constant battle when you're a TV reporter about how much time you get. And his insert that he did, the recorded portion of his live shot that he was doing, went 1:30, and they wanted 1:20, and he got upset that they wanted to take 10 seconds off. So he called the news director. Make a long story short, it appears that the news director allowed him to go 1:30. Great, that happens all the time. You have this battle. But then he put the battle on Twitter, and he put out there basically that he shot down the producer, and he won. And I can't for the life of me see what the purpose of that is, other than maybe he was a little angry, once again not thinking. And here it's still up 2 days later, and it's making its way around, and I'm thinking, really? That's how you want to go around? I mean, I've had knockdown dragouts with TV producers and assignment desk editors. Some of them my very good friends. They once had to tell me, step back from the desk and the assignment desk.
And I'm sorry, Dave, that's all the time we have for you. Sorry to cut you off there. Our producers are giving us the Dave's time is up signal.
We were going for 1:20, man. Come on.
I took too long with the story. You want me to get in your face too? Sharing that. I just can't believe that he shared that with the world. That's just, it makes no sense. That's what we've come to. We overshare things. That's something that shouldn't have been shared.
We are petty human beings.
Yep. So Dave Statter from Statter911.com, thanks for taking the time today and talking to the What's Your Emergency radio network. We really appreciate it, Dave. Be well.
Appreciate you guys, and thank you very much. You too.
Cheers. Thanks so much.
MC.
That was awesome.
Anger and emotion.
Right?
Well, Dave was spot on with that. You need to have an outlet. It can't just be you come back from a bad day, like he said, and just start screaming at the internet. It doesn't really work that way anymore.
Well, it can. It just won't go well.
You have to know what you're doing.
You know what I know how to do?
Call for a bolo?
Bolo! All right, so bolo for this episode here is something we talked about on our previous show, the crossover show. I love the Red Rising trilogy, and I finally reread the first 3 so I could get to the 4th one.
You still haven't given me the second one.
Iron Gold. One thing at a time. I'm recording this internet radio show. Can you give me a minute?
I'm recording my internet radio
exactly.
Show.
Iron Gold, Pierce Brown. It's 10 years after the 3rd book, and I liked it. It set it up nicely for another book. Shocker.
Yeah, go figure.
But it a little stilted. It didn't have the flow of the first 3, but I've been so invested in it. I really did enjoy it. I didn't like it as much as the first 3, but if you're looking for a good beach read, a good fiction book.
If it's nonfiction.
Yeah, we're all in trouble. Yeah. So Iron Gold, Pierce Brown, what about you?
So the important thing, MC, is not just getting a good book or sitting and enjoying something on the idiot box. But the wife and I have actually for a few years now been regular attendees of the local theater. The outdoor theater.
The theater.
The theater.
I always wondered why you bought top hats and scarves.
Yeah, not that kind of theater. You don't have to go and, the old-timey Shakespearean stuff. But what we go and see at Cal Shakes, it's really neat. The theater,
is it a hobo named Cal that just shakes his butt?
The theater is outside. It's open air, and it's an actual scale replica of the Globe Theater. So it's only that big. You've got maybe, I want to say, 200 people in the audience.
Nice.
Max. Beautiful outside. They start the shows right at dusk, so you're into the evening. But the wife and I just saw Quijote Nuevo, which is a play by Octavio Solis, adapted from the Cervantes novel of Don Quixote. And one of the great things about that story is you never really know. Is he mad? Is he pretending to be mad? But the fantastic casting of Emilio Delgado as Don Quixote. You may remember him as Luis from Sesame Street.
I love Delgado.
So, MC, here's this story, the new story, Quijote Nuevo, about an old man whose family wants to put him in a home, and he doesn't want to go to the home, so he just escapes on his bike, a.k.a. horse. So it's a modern retelling of that story, but it's with this character, this actor, that you've known your entire life. So it's actually like your own grandfather. is slowly slipping into dementia. And he comes across Sancho Panza, and he escapes. All these demons are following him around, and it was a very moving story with, I think there were 7 or 8 people total in the cast. It was beautiful. If you guys
impressive.
have live theater in your community, you have to go see it, and especially if Quixote Nuevo has come through town, go see it.
The other thing we want you to do, your call to action for this particular episode, do us a favor, rate the show, review us, drop us a line, let us know how we're doing. The more you rate it, the more you review it, the more that you share it, of course, the more folks, the more ears, the more eyes we're going to get in front of, and the bigger impact this show can have. So please go to your podcast distributor of choice, rate the show, review us. You can send both of us emails, either Justin at wyeradio.com or Jason at wyeradio.com. Let us know what you want to hear about, and let's make this the show all about you, what we can do to help serve you.
Give us the feedback, guys. We need it. And until next time, MC, be safe on the bike.
Look out for planes.